This Coast to Coast Entertainment Network program is brought to you by Beside Me Bracelets. Our bracelets are handmade for any occasion. Use the promo code Coast to Coast for 15% off. Visit their website at besideme.com. Suzanne's Paparazzi Jewelry. With 24-hour shopping available, use the code 160920 and show her some love, like she showed us. Reaper Apparel Company, a commitment to live your most authentic way every single day. Visit reaperapparelco.com for more information and a look at all of their apparel offerings. And by Good Day Embroidery, your local source for custom embroidery, screen printing, and more. Log on to gooddayembroidery.com for more information.
Hello and welcome to another edition of C2C Rankem. I'm the host, Big B, along with my co-host, Tim Hendricks. How you doing, bud?
I'm doing good. You picked a topic that, I wasn't too shocked by it, but I'm kind of shocked that we didn't do it earlier. Now that I thought about it.
Yeah, I mean we've done kind of these topics, but baseball season's right around the corner. So this week we did people born in certain states. So and we did classify born. So if somebody's like, no, he wasn't, hopefully we've done our research and we can 100% commit to that we got the right states and people born in.
I'll credit. I don't know where you got your stuff in, but from every one of my states, I will credit the Baseball Almanac. I got them from there, so I'm solid. I know
Baseball Almanac was a good one, and then Baseball References was another one I went to. So, and I'm kind of curious to see if you actually have one that I have, because if not, I got a big curveball coming down the road. So,
what state? Hold on, what state?
I'm not going to say yet.
You're going to say California, aren't you?
No, it's not California.
Okay, good.
And just for somebody to know, if I miss somebody in California, like I did on another show, then we will really throw my baseball card away. Yeah. So the first state we're going to start with is New York. Some of these states, I'll tell you right now, I think we could go 5 for 5 on. So,
yeah.
There's some that I think we're going to be way off on some. So, all right. So
how many do you think in New York?
New York? God, I could see. This is one of the states I could see 5 for 5 in, but there were some names out there that kind of jumped out me after I wrote my list. So I'll go a solid 3 to start off.
I think 3. I think 4 isn't out of the realm of possibilities. I looked at this list and I had to change my list like 9 times because New York had a long list of people, especially people who played for Brooklyn back in the Dodger days, back in the Giant days, back in the Yankees and Mets days. This one was tough.
There was one name I will admit, if I didn't scroll again, I probably would have missed a big name in New York and had somebody in there that, on a different list probably would make it, but this list should not have made it. So your number 5, we'll let you start number 5.
My number 5. I took a guy from New York. He now actually has a little bit more ties to Minnesota than he did back in the day when he got drafted. But when I remember when he came up and they added him at shortstop with the likes of Tino Martinez, Ken Griffey Jr., Jay Buhner, back in the Randy Johnson days. He was. I think he'd still be extremely popular if he hadn't decided to leave the Seattle Mariners to go to the Texas Rangers and sign that huge contract, and then doubles down on the stupidity and goes to the New York Yankees. But is now the minority owner of the Minnesota Timberwolves?
Yeah. He's the face of the ownership.
He's the face of the ownership. That's like that's saying Magic Johnson's the face of the ownership of the Washington Commanders. But my number 5 is the original A-Rod, the original AA Rod. That's Alex Rodriguez.
Yeah, he's not the one I had and then took off, but I did see him, and I'm like, Tim's not going to go that route. But again, if you're a baseball guy, you do research. I mean, he's probably a name that just jumps out. For me, my number 5, I think kind of bounced around. I could be wrong, but I think did a little bit of managing, and that's one Whitey Ford.
Really?
Yeah.
At 5. Holy smokes. Holy smokes. I'm thinking, I'm wondering if you're mistaking Whitey Ford for Whitey Herzog.
Possibly, but anyway, it's all right. You're number 4.
My number 4. I was one of the few Milwaukee Braves I was lucky enough to meet. One I was, unlike my dad was lucky enough to have met 2 Milwaukee Braves, 3 Milwaukee Braves, if I'm not mistaken, and had lunch with 2 of them. This one I've had lunch with back in the mid 90s during a card show where he was signing at, and absolutely one of the nicest people that you'll ever meet, and probably one of the greatest pitching tandems in Milwaukee Braves history between Sane and this gentleman. If I'm not mistaken, may still hold the major league record for home runs by a pitcher. My number 4 is Warren Spahn.
Ooh, missed that one. Now, are you talking giving up home runs or hitting home runs?
No, hitting them.
Hitting them, okay. Because I think Bert Blyleven
I know he was
for the most home runs given up.
Yeah, I know for the longest time up until interleague, I know he had the record, but I wasn't sure if he still had the record because of interleague and things like that.
Well,
I think his record was like 9 or 10.
Well, the thing is do you consider if they consider that Ohtani a pitcher, then no, he doesn't hold the record for hitting.
No, he's destroyed the record. But no, I don't consider Ohtani because he's a dual position guy. Yeah. I consider Spahn.
All right, so my number 4, the guy I threw on my list. Like I said, if I didn't research my list, I would have missed this guy. Yankee great, and that's one Lou Gehrig.
How'd you miss that?
I was scrolling through, just kind of, I overlooked it, and then scrolling back through, and I'm like, wait a minute, Lou Gehrig. Oh yeah, got to put him on there. So,
now I'm starting to wonder who's all on your list. I know I took a bunch off my list.
Well, I know. I mean, that's the whole thing is you start with the list, and then some people jump out at us, and you look through it, it's like, oh, just throw him on there.
Exactly.
All right, you're number 3.
My number 3, it's amazing that you put him at number 5. I remember my number 3 is being probably one of the best pitching guys out of the Yankees bullpen, out of the Yankees organization back in the 60s. Actually was one of the guys that shut down the Milwaukee Braves in the 65 World Series. Probably one of the better battery mates with another guy from New York. I don't know if you have him on the list, so I'm not going to spoil. But my number 3 is your number 5, Whitey Ford.
Okay. I'm trying to find our little because it's not C2C unless the sniping starts. So my number 3.
You started early, and that's cheating.
That's cheating. My number 3. I think he's probably one of if it wasn't for Cal Ripken, this guy would probably be the face of Baltimore. Pitcher from New York, one Jim Palmer.
I took him off the list. I took him off the list.
Well, the thing is, and I won't spoil who I took off the list because I overlooked Lou Gehrig, but we'll go. So you're number 2.
Holy smokes! I have this really bad feeling. I know you took off this list because he's not on mine, but he should. If this was out of 10, he would have been on my list.
Oh yeah.
You brought up Cal Ripken. You just brought him up again. It's not C2C unless you're sniping.
Double it down.
The original Iron Man, the original. If it wasn't for ALS, I don't think Cal Ripken breaks that record. My number 2 is your number 4.
Yep.
Number 4, Lou Gehrig.
All right. So I got your number 2 and number 3. All right. My number 2, when I first saw, this was the second name I saw, and I'm like, oh, really? He's from New York? But definitely the older generation, your dad, definitely knows this guy and probably could tell stories while watching this guy play, and that's one Carl Yastrzemski.
I don't have Yastrzemski.
Oh,
I don't have Yastrzemski because I've got one better. Honestly have one better.
Right. You're number 1.
My number 1, and this is to me, you can talk to me until you're purple in the face because the other guy that's in this conversation comes up later on in one of my states. But to me, I think the greatest pitcher to ever put on Dodger blue, to me, is not one Clayton Kershaw. I believe it's one Sandy Koufax.
Yep. Yeah, definitely Sandy Koufax, my number 1 New Yorker.
You took off. I'm going to take a guess. Let me guess on who you took off the list.
Who did I take off?
You took off Yogi Berra.
Oh no, I didn't even see that one. I had no, because Whitey Ford would have been off if I overlooked. I did overlook Berra, but I had Edgar Martinez on there, and then I saw Lou Gehrig because Edgar Martinez. I'm like, oh, the original DH, big name for the Mariners. Yeah, Yogi Berra, I guess, definitely number 10, top 10.
Yeah, we could have did 10 on this without a problem.
Yeah, we could have done 10. There's a lot of states we could have done 10 on. So
yeah, except for Wisconsin, folks. Wisconsin can't throw pitchers out there to save your life.
You know what? I gotta say, Minnesota is probably one we couldn't have done 10 on.
I could have.
I
could have done 10.
Yeah,
I think I could have done 10.
You think so?
I think I could have.
Yeah. All right. So let's move down to the big state of Texas, and see where we get there. Here's another one too. I think we could have went 5 for 5 on, and I'm gonna go a strong 4 because I think one of mine is gonna be a semi curveball on this one.
I'm going 3.
3 is a good number, but I think
remember
I got one.
I know I've got one curveball.
Okay.
I just don't remember how well. I don't remember him well enough to. He's an old player.
Ooh, okay, yeah. I guess 5 is out of the question then. All right, so I get to start on state number 2, and we're going to go with the guy who in the 90s paired up with a couple other solid starters for the Braves, and I wish they could have won more than, one World Series, but they went to quite a bit because I think in dynasty terms that the Braves in the 90s were the team, and they're coming back around to be the team again, and that is the Gold Glover pitcher for the Braves, the Cubs. I know I'm missing a third team there.
You're not. You're not.
He went back to the Cubs, didn't he?
No, he retired with the Braves.
Oh, he did. Okay,
yep.
That's one Greg Maddux. I thought there was a third team.
No. I know. I think you're thinking of Smolter Glavine.
Yeah. So Greg Maddux, you're number 5.
My number 5. My dad. I think we've had this conversation. Matter of fact, we've had this conversation already in this episode about the Milwaukee Braves, about how my dad believes the only real Braves organization is the Milwaukee Braves organization. Everybody knows that my dad's favorite player was Hank Aaron, but my dad will never argue with the fact as who my favorite Milwaukee Braves player was. The originator of the number 8, also in the Hall of Fame, on the 500 home run club, if I'm not mistaken. To me, he played third base, absolutely phenomenal. I have a couple of his cards from the 60s. And my dad said, if you're not going to be a Hank Aaron fan, you have to be an Eddie Matthews fan. And my number 5 is Eddie Matthews.
I did see that name on there. So my number 4, I think made his name mainly as a DH. Then got into the managerial side of things. And then, history wrote itself. So one Don Baylor at number 4.
Not bad. I saw Baylor.
Right.
I saw
right.
Baylor.
Yep. You're number 3.
Well, you've said it already twice in my thing, and so I'm going to officially say it. It's not C2C unless we're sniping. My number 4 is your number 5, Greg Maddux, which is funny because his brother Mike isn't born in the state of Texas.
Well, the thing is, when I saw his name at first, I'm like, wait a minute, I thought he was from Michigan.
No, you're thinking of that's John Smoltz. That's John Smoltz and Steve
I know,
Avery.
we talked about those 3 quite a bit. And my number 3, I think a lot of people, big fan of his one on his team. They could probably consider him the greatest person on their team, and that's one Joe Morgan.
Would you like to hear was that your curveball? Just out of curiosity.
No, Don Baylor was my curveball.
Oh, Don Baylor. Okay, that's not bad. I remember him being in Colorado as a manager.
Yep. All right. So
your number 3
your curveball?
My curveball. My curveball. I remember back in the day for us especially sports collecting, after you just started back up, they used to have these cards come out. They're all trash cards, but it's most of the time they were the only times you got affordable. You were able to afford a Babe Ruth, a Mickey Mantle without paying too much for anything. Yeah. But we've got a guy that did on deck with us, Big Greg, big St. Louis Cardinals fan, and I think Greg would agree. Probably one of the greatest, probably Mount Rushmore of St. Louis Cardinals. On the Mount Rushmore, he would probably agree with me. Is my number 3, Rogers Hornsby.
Yeah, he would probably agree with you, definitely. I think a lot of Cardinal fans would. My number 2, I think he's probably got the greatest quote of all time when it comes to baseball. And if I'm wrong on the quote, I'm so desperately going to be upset with myself because I used it when I kind of hung up my cleats, and I did a perfect time because we played a doubleheader, and I said, hey, why not go and play 2? Let's have fun. I don't know the exact quote, but Ernie Banks at number 2.
Well, it's kind of funny because the only reason my number 2 is at number 2 is because he made the comment, let's play 2. My number 2 is Mr. Cub himself, Ernie Banks.
So number 2. Oh,
so I'm gonna guess I know who your number 1 is at this point.
Yeah. We started off with a solid pitcher in New York. We're gonna finish off with probably the guy that's not going to get touched with no hitters. He's gonna be the only guy to get 4 hits off of Robin Ventura, and that's one Nolan Ryan.
I like how we started. We started with a New York pitcher with Sandy Koufax in New York, right? Yeah. And then we've got on the list, both of our number 1 is a guy who was drafted by a New York team in the Mets, and former general manager, because I know he's the former general manager of the Texas Rangers. Yeah, my number 1 is your number 1. The only guy that has ever gotten more hits off of Robin Ventura than Robin Ventura got off of Nolan Ryan.
Holy still, honestly, that is still a classic
And the way he started hitting him, it looked like he had been at Monday Night Raw the night before, because he grabs him by the head and just starts punching him in the face. And I'm like,
and that was Ventura's rookie year or second year.
Second year. That was his second year.
Yeah, a learning experience for him. All right, so let's move over to Florida. Tim, you spent some time in Florida, so this will be kind of interesting to see what we do here.
I think I've seen it. I had to look at, when I looked at the list, I'm like, did I see any of these people play in Florida? And I think I have with one of them.
Yeah, I would say there's at least one on here that you probably should have seen.
I didn't put him on the list.
Oh, okay.
I know because I think I was at an Easter game where they were playing Kansas City, and I think he was playing third base at the time, if I'm not mistaken, or he was DHing. I can't remember.
Yeah. So with that being said, again, I think we're gonna hit number one again. But I'm gonna go 3.
I'm going 3, and I think we missed number 1.
You think we missed number 1?
I think we missed number 1.
All right. Yeah, we could. So go ahead, start off with your number 5.
I'll be the first person to say this. When he was drafted by Milwaukee, I was so happy. And then he got traded. Not so happy after that. I got kind of sick to my stomach, and then all of a sudden, his alleged Balco bull crap came out, and I'm thinking, well, and then you realize who his uncle is, and you think, well, it's kind of par for the course, I guess. My number 5 is Gary Sheffield.
Yeah, I spent a little time in Florida too, so that was my number. I'm sorry, my number 5. I think we're all going to remember this guy, not for playing, but for his managerial career. Blowing the top head off of himself when he gets upset, getting beat red a few times. That's one Lou Piniella.
He was manager of the Rays at the time when I was at that game.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good one. I saw that one too, and I'm thinking he played for the Reds, the Yankees. Good Lord, he bounced all over the place too.
Yep. Your number 4.
My number 4. It's crazy because I think for the longest time, this was one of those guys that had one of those question marks. When was he going to get into the Hall of Fame? And then I believe he's finally gotten in. I think in the last 4 years.
Okay.
I remember him getting his start in Toronto, and then making his way and made a big splash when he ended up going to Atlanta. Ended up becoming the crime dog in Atlanta. Huge, and when you've got Braves Nation behind you, you're pretty much almost going to get rocked into the Hall of Fame. And then I believe I think he's the one. He's one of the 2 that I've seen in Tampa, because I believe he was with the Devil Rays at the time playing first base. But when he got into the Hall, it was well deserved. I was so happy that he got in. And that's Fred McGriff.
Yeah, that's a good one. This is definitely a state I could have went 10 on easily. So my number 4, what can we say? One of the few guys to get drafted by the same team, play his whole career at the same team, get much respect to the player. I think he could go into coaching, batting wise, maybe even fielding. I know our Atlanta Braves fans, Mr. Adam Barber's going to be happy with this one. Number 4, the switch hitting of phenom Chipper Jones.
I took him off the list. He was like 6 or 7. As soon as Gary Sheffield went on, it went just like.
Gary Sheffield. That could be a good.
And I got to remember, Gary Sheffield played for the Braves too. It's like all the people, all the teams that Sheffield played for, and I'm like,
yep. So, all right, you're number 3.
My number 3. I think this is the first time we've had an uncle nephew on any of our lists on this. We've had father sons on our list before.
yep.
But we've never had. I don't think we've ever had uncle nephews on the list, and probably one of the greatest nicknames in baseball when he came up. I think still the only is he still the only pitcher to win the MVP and Rookie of the Year in the same year? Or was it Rookie of the Year and Cy Young in the same year?
Okay.
Back in 84, 85, 84.
Well, again, if you count Ohtani, I think he got Rookie of the Year. And anyways.
But
anyways,
I don't think he got, but in the same year. I think he's one of the few.
Right, yeah.
In the one rookie, I think he's one of the few rookies that have done it. I know that. And to lead the New York Mets to the 85 World Series, to beat the Red Sox. We all know about his off the field fun, but I know I listened to Crime and Sports, and they did a whole little thing on this pitcher, but I liked him. I thought Doc was a great pitcher back in the 80s. Him and Oil Can Boyd for the Red Sox. I loved watching their duels all the time. My number 3 is Dwight Gooden.
Yeah, Doc. I like him. He's getting inducted. Him and Strawberry. I don't know if it's the same day, but their Mets are finally going to put those jerseys up on the wall. So, good shout out. I like Doc. He was a good hitting pitcher. Speaking of pitchers that can hit.
Yeah, he was.
My number 3. We had one great Cub. Now we'll go to another great Cub. I believe right field. When you said good nicknames, I'm like, oh, this is definitely a good nickname. I thought we were on the same path. Then you said pitcher. I'm like, yeah, he's way off from being a pitcher. But he went by the Hawk, Andre Dawson.
My brother was lucky enough to meet him. My brother was
nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, it was funny. He snuck in line. This is that infamous Chicago Sun Times show that we went to. And my brother snuck in line.
Ryan likes to sneak into a lot of lines, I'm thinking.
Yeah. It's probably safer we don't have him on. He's in our viewers today, but he did, and the fact is, it made it worse. It was for a charity. And he's stuck in line for a charity to meet Andre Dawson, and I'm like, my brother gets Andre Dawson, and I can't get Reggie Jackson. So,
yeah. All right, you're number 2.
My number 2, I think Tommy Lasorda made the comment. I wish I had a million of this guy, especially, and find out that he wasn't originally drafted by the Dodgers. I believe he was originally drafted by the Padres. He was at I think he's with the Padres organization about the same time that Ozzie Smith was, which is crazy. But every time and the weirdest thing is, everybody's like, if you were to ask me if I always had one, if somebody ever asked you if I told you a name and you gave me a player that you can always put with a team, and my number 2 I can always put with the LA Dodgers. It's the first person I think of outside of Lasorda. My number 2 is Steve Garvey.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah, I could see that with that. But my number 2 player, born from Florida, bounced around quite a bit. Another nickname I loved, every time we talk about him, and I think it's one of those names that you say, but you always have to put his nickname in there. And we can call him the original Rock, and that's what Tim the Rock Reigns. The guy was a bowling ball. That guy was just
that guy could run, and he could run for days when he was with Montreal. He could run for days when he was with Chicago. Think about that.
Put some pads on him. He could probably run for days for any NFL team.
Well, think about that. Think about that. If you had a healthy Bo Jackson in Chicago, you have a healthy Bo Jackson. You have a healthy Frank Thomas. You have a healthy healthy Tim Raines. Now, everybody keeps forgetting that Frank Thomas was a tight end in college.
Yeah.
Now you have all three of those guys stealing second base. They're all monsters. They're all monsters.
Yeah. All right, you're number one.
And you stole my number one.
Oh,
but you did not. But you didn't steal. I'm going to take it as a former Montreal Expo, a former Chicago player. But you went White Sox. I went Cubs. My number one is your number three, Andre Dawson.
Oh, you went that route. Okay.
I love Andre Dawson.
I loved Andre Dawson too. Especially being that you come home and you had the Cubs on.
WGN was amazing.
Well, so I see a comment here before I get to my number one. A buddy of mine, Brandon. Things are getting crazy in the NFL. Yes, we will cover a little bit of NFL here at the end after we do some rankings here. So with that being said, my number one, I actually opened up a pack of cards a few weeks ago of this guy and got an on-card autograph of his, and that's one Steve Carlton.
I saw that one. I did see that one. That was.
I thought for sure we were going to go 3 for 3 on number ones.
No, I knew we weren't. And the thing is, it's like,
Dawson's not a bad number one. I mean, that definitely is a huge number one.
And the worst thing is the guy that remember how I said that I saw a guy in play third base. I can't remember if he played third base or DH. And from Florida, actually he's from the Tampa area, is Wade Boggs.
Oh, yeah, that would have been. Yeah. Now that you said that name, I'm like, yeah, they did make a big stink about, because that was their expansion year or second year.
I think it was his second or his first. It was like his second year. It was the second year in the league, and they brought him into.
Yeah, I remember now. Everybody was making a big stink on him going home. So.
Yeah, because Fred McGriff's from the Tampa area, and they brought in
Canseco was part of that team. Yeah.
Which one?
Canseco
was part of that team. McGriff was part of that team.
Yeah.
If you think about everybody the Rays had, I think Piniella was the manager.
Nope.
They brought in a lot of Tampa guys.
They did. All right, so let's move to California. Another one that could go 5 for 5. We could have probably did 10, 20 on these guys. There's a lot. I'm gonna cut it back because there's so many. I think we're gonna get 2.
I'm looking at this going, if this were any other state, this would be a 5 for 5. But this is so.
I think we could still go 5 for 5, but I think
I have this feeling the guy in the middle of my list is a curveball. I don't know why.
Oh, see, sad thing is, I'm looking at my list too. It's like, yeah, my number 3 could be a slight curveball. So what do you think, Tim?
3, definitely 3. Okay. A solid 3.
I can see a solid 3, and like I said,
the fourth is going to be tough because California is just chock full of superstars.
Yep, exactly. So I'll kick off number 5. Possibly one of my favorite relievers. I like this.
No 5.
I like the sidearm. I like, and I tell everybody, if I could go back in time and teach a young me to pitch, I'd pitch sidearm and I would throw the knuckleball on a sidearm. I think that would just be one dangerous pitch.
You in Wakefield?
Yeah, but no, I'm not. No, it's one Dennis Eckersley.
I had Eckersley on the list. Yeah.
But I tell everybody, if I could go back in time and teach myself to pitch again,
there's one
curveball.
There's one guy, and his name came up. I can't remember which state, but it was in one of the 6 states that we did. But I can't remember who it was. And I know who it was. I just can't remember where it was.
Okay.
But it was like Hoyt Wilhelm. He had the only reason he did so well against Babe Ruth was the fact is he threw a submarine ball because it came his knuckles dragged. I would try to find a way to teach a kid that, because the kid would be Cy Young every year.
Exactly. All right, you're number 5.
Speaking of Cy Youngs, now I already told you that Dennis Eckersley is not on my list. So, an original. Now think about this: if you had the bullpen, if you had the pitching staff of the Montreal Expos of the late '80s, this guy was like number 1 on the list. But then you had Pedro Martinez.
Yep.
you had what was it? Pascual Perez. You had all these huge names in Montreal, and I think you just give them another 2 years there in the World Series before they decide to go to Washington. But everybody remembers him for
94. They could have been there.
Oh God, they'd have been. Yeah, if they hadn't gotten through the strike, they'd have been there. If Sid Bream had not done what he did, I think, yeah. But everybody remembers him for his time in Seattle, and then goes to pretty much finishes it off in Arizona. I can't remember where else he goes to.
Yankees.
He did. Oh, that's right. He did. I had so much respect until you said the Yankees. Again, another guy with a great nickname. I was
a fitting nickname.
Huh? It's the nickname. It's a big nickname. And its funny thing is, and everybody used to say how scared they were to see him pitching off the mound, him being 6'7". That's and put it in retrospect for people who's never seen this guy pitch. That's like putting, and I'm saying this loosely. No, we'll do it right. It's like putting Michael Jordan on the mound and pitching, because they're the equivalent. They're like an inch different in height, because Jordan's 6'6".
Yeah.
And my number 5, the big unit, is 6'7". I scared the living hell out of me to watch him pitch against my team, but I would laugh if they always pitched against my friend's team, because this guy's a monster.
And the only one to kill a bird in spring training.
In spring training, and matter of fact, if I'm not mistaken, he's now a sports photographer.
Yep.
And the exploded bird is now his logo for his company.
Nice.
Oh yeah, look it up. It's awesome. My number 5 is the big unit, Randy Johnson.
Yeah, that's good. I saw him. So my number 4, again, we go back to olden days, and I think, like you said with another guy, you say a name, this is the first thing that pops out. I don't, and I think too, if he didn't go and fight in the war, I think his numbers would be almost untouchable.
I've got 2 like that on this list. 2 of them.
And this one is Joe DiMaggio.
You went that way. Okay. Okay. Now everything that you just said. Now, like I said, everything you just said. Now put that in as a Red Sox. What was it? His last home run, his last hit as a Red Sox was a home run. Yeah. I think one of the last few guys that went into the Hall ended his career with a 400 batting average. The moment that he had on the field during the All-Star game, probably
in Boston. Yeah.
Just in Boston. Everybody. To me, he's one of those. He's like Steve Garvey to me. When you say the Red Sox, I automatically think of this guy. You brought up, and the funny thing is, you brought up another guy earlier, where I think of Boston. I've only think of 2 players. My number 4 is the first one. Your Carl Yastrzemski was my second one. I'm not lucky to have a card of his, but my mom did work at the hospital where he passed away at. My mom wasn't lucky enough to work the floor as he was at. My number 4 is, to me, Mr. Red Sox, Ted Williams.
Yeah, that's a good one. My number 3, It's funny. I think now on my list, I think I've seen 4 or 5 former Expos on this list. This will be the next one. This is my semi curveball. Expos, but I think a lot of us remember him as a Met, and left the world too soon. I think due to illness, but a great catcher, one Gary Carter.
I remember him as a Met. I remember him as a Red Expo.
I
Yeah,
thought it
that
was
Expo.
Expo.
Yeah, he was an Expo. He was an Expo.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can still remember the card where Andre Dawson, Tim Raines, and Gary Carter were all in the standing in their Expos jersey. Yeah, he died what 10 years ago?
Yeah, roughly
Around that area.
All right, you're number 3.
My number 3. I see. The funny thing is, Texas had Clayton Kershaw, and none of us had Clayton Kershaw, which was my argument. That's my second arguing about the best pitcher in Dodgers history. Well, if there was an argument for the third one, here's the other one. I think of him, another one. He pitched alongside on the same rotation as our number 1 from New York on the Dodgers side. Mm-hmm. Oh my God! Please tell me. And now I'm saying this, and I'm hoping he didn't play for the Yankees. I'm starting to think that he played for the Yankees. He did. I know it already. No, give me a second. Okay, hold on. Let me see. I'm good. He played for the Dodgers, right alongside Sandy Koufax. I had this done for like a couple days, and I should have did more homework on that part. But probably to me, I think one of the best 1-2 punches in Major League history. If you had to get past Sandy Koufax, and you're like, oh, great. Most teams, you're like, unless you're like the Braves, and you had to get past. Yeah. Or you had to get past like the Yankees with Don Larson and Whitey Ford back in the day at the same time. This guy was just as scary as Sandy Koufax. To me, my number 3 is Don Drysdale.
Okay.
That's my curveball.
Yeah, that was a good one. My number 2, again, I think you said it best. Mr. Boston himself. I don't think we're going to see a 400 hitter again ever for a season. I think we've had a couple close ones.
Well, we had. Oh no, that was triple double. You're right. That was
that's one Ted Williams. So,
well,
all right, you're number 1.
My number 2.
You're number 2. I'm sorry.
My number 2. Well, this is. You kind of alluded to it earlier about if I miss a player in California, you should take away my baseball card.
Yep.
This happens to be the same guy that you forgot was an outfielder and our best outfielder.
Oh my God, yeah, big air.
To me, this is the guy that if you were to ask who's Mr. Padre.
Oh yeah.
God, I wish his 2 kids could play half as good as he did. Because and the funny thing is, and this is the terrible thing, both of his kids played in the Brewers system. They both, Chris and Tony, both played in the Brewers system and sucked.
I think one of them finished off in the Padres system.
Yeah, it was Chris, I believe. We traded him away. We traded Chris away. But to me, I think probably the most pure hitter outside of nobody.
Outside of nobody.
This guy, I think, and then he goes to San Diego State to coach to coach the God, I'm not even. What is it? What are they? The Aztecs.
I think so.
And to teach them the proper fundamentals of baseball. A guy we lost way too soon. You said Gary Carter we lost too soon. We lost Tony way too soon. My number 2 is Mr. Padre himself. We've had Mr. Cub, we've had Mr. Boston, we've had we've had Mr. Dodger at this point. But Mr. Padre, Mr. Hit, I'm not going to call him Mr. Clutch because that's somebody else. Yeah, my number 2 is Tony Gwynn.
Yep. Well, yep. I'm not missing him on two list, and I know our fellow colleague, the voice of a lot of California sports, actually got to pick his brain a little bit on hitting, and that's one Tony Gwynn. So
my number 1.
You're number 1. Yep.
Well, remember how you talked about Tony? How you talked about number 4?
Yep.
Your number 4. I believe my number 1, much like your number 4, has a record that will probably never be broken, never touched, because there are too many all or nothing type of hitters. Truthfully, our number 2 could probably have broken my number 1's record, because if you would have just waited, he's that guy. Just I think that was the last guy that had probably the best shot at it. And the funny thing is, and it's all, yes, I like to loop stuff back to me. His record, his streak ended in July 17th, which is my birthday, against the Cleveland Indians. My number 1 is Joe DiMaggio. Yes, it's a sniper.
Yep. All right. So yeah, Joe DiMaggio, yeah, a streak that, I mean, records are meant to be broken, but I think if he didn't go to the service, that streak would have been.
Well, the funny thing is, we had on our list, we had DiMaggio and we had Williams. Both went to World War II. Think of their career if they had if they hadn't gone to the war.
Oh yeah, a big what if, whole thing. So.
Here's my question, and I know this is slightly off topic. Do you think that outside if World War II, we didn't get into World War II, do you think we get Jackie Robinson into the league earlier?
Oh, that's a good debate question. We probably do. I mean, that or we don't get him at all. I mean,
I think we get him. I think we just don't get him. I think we get him earlier.
Yeah, that sun is like right there, but there we go. Now it's on the other side. Okay. All right. So I will start off. I will put my state first because I kind of want to see where you go with this state.
Oh,
so
gosh.
Of course we're going Minnesota. We know there should be 3 obvious guys on here.
Oh God, there's 3 obvious. I'm looking at 4 at this point. I could easily see 4, if not 5. I think this is a 5 state for me.
It's not a 5 state.
It's not?
No.
Okay.
Because I have a feeling you missed a big name.
Really?
I do feel you have. And the thing is if I didn't see him on another list we were doing, I would have missed this name too.
Really?
So, yep. Yeah.
All right.
4. I'll say 4, but there should be 3 glaring names for sure on this list. So
I'm looking at this and I'm going, yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Let's go with your number 5.
My number 5. I tout myself as being a Milwaukee Brewer fan. I think one of the first conversations you and I have ever had to talk about baseball was the fact is this guy from my Milwaukee Brewer, my Brewer team was from Minnesota. You made that quite well known to me on many occasions, and how you wished he was on the Twins. And then, I remember the free agent market, and then he goes to Toronto.
Yep.
And I'm like, oh my! And I thought we were going to have to talk you down from a ledge. And then you got your wish. Don't get me wrong, you got your wish. I really wish that he had gotten a World Series with us before he got one in Toronto with Joe Carter. Yep. But to me, he's another one of those guys between Rob and Yount. Really funny thing is, I keep thinking of the Brewers, and I think Raleigh Fingers, but Raleigh Fingers is only at the team for like 3 years. I was lucky enough to see him play back in the year that we lost the World Series. My first ever baseball game was with this gentleman playing. What the hell was he playing? Left field, I want to say. I'm lucky enough to say I've seen him. My number and he's a I believe he's a Hall of Famer. He's in the Ring of Honor at Miller Park American Finance and American Home Insurance, or whatever they want to call that Miller Park now. And both I've got 2 guys on my list that are actually in that ring, not this list, but on my lists per se. My number 5 is the Hall of Famer from Minnesota, Milwaukee Brewer, Toronto Blue Jay, Minnesota Twin, Paul Molitor.
Yep. So my number 5, I think, some people that know me are going to be surprised I probably threw him on the list over guys like Kent Herbeck, Glenn Perkins, just to kind of rub it into him. But I got to give the guy respect. Recent Hall of Famer, recent retiree, face of the Twins for this generation. They're Harmon Killebrew, they're Kirby Puckett. I will swallow, put him on the list of top 5 Minnesota players. Joe Mauer.
I've got no arguments with this. I have no arguments with.
All right, you're number 4.
My number 4. You probably have him higher, considering what he did for the Minnesota Twins in the World Series. But there are many people out there that remember what he did for the Detroit Tigers during the World Series. Also, I believe, I think we've had this conversation. I can never remember if he's in the Hall of Fame or not. I think recently, if not mistaken, to me, I think one of the greatest pitchers in Minnesota Twins history, maybe one of the better.
It's 1 year.
Yeah. To me, it's probably one of the top 5 Detroit Tiger pitchers in history. And they've had some good pitchers in Detroit. My number 4 is Jack Morris.
Yeah, he was inducted in 2008.
Oh gosh, and I said just recently.
2018. I'm sorry.
Well, 2008. Okay. So the year
I
moved
elected by the Modern Baseball Era Committee. So, anyways, yes, you sniped me at number 4. To me, we definitely, if he pitched in today's game, we don't have the best game pitched game 7.
We don't.
And that's no disregard to Smoltz, who had a good game going. We could have had a fight on the mound if Tom Kelly would have came and pulled him. Or a good argument, maybe not fist blowing throwing, but so yes, Jack Morris, definitely number 4. Number 3.
Well, you saved me trying to explain my number 3 a lot easier on because it's not C2C unless we're sniping. I hold your number 5 in a little bit more regards than a lot of Twins fans.
I like one more.
I've again having half season tickets for the Minnesota for the Minnesota Twins. No, I didn't. I had half season tickets for the for the Tampa Bay Rays the year they lost the World Series the first time. I got lucky enough to see him. My number 3 is your number 5, Joe Mauer.
Yeah, and the thing is and when he was up for free agency, I said if he went to Boston, he would be close to batting 400.
Oh yeah, with that
bounce right off that wall every time.
With that park, he would have had no problems.
Yeah. So my number 3 is going to be my huge curveball because I really don't think you have him on the list. But I could be wrong. He is from Hibbing, Minnesota. I have fact checked this all over the place. A New York Yankee, again, one of those guys that you're probably going to, you say the name, be like, yep, he's a Yankee. And that's one Roger Maris. Your number, where we at? Number 2 for you.
My number 2. My number two. I can't remember if he played for the Twins. This is how bad this is.
Ooh.
But I've got a Yankee. I've also got a San Diego Padre. But
Yeah, he played
if
for
I'm not mistaken, you've considered this guy probably the greatest athlete to come out of Minnesota, if I'm not mistaken.
I will double down on that 10 times out of 10.
And when you told me everything that he has done, I absolutely, completely, and utterly agree. He could have probably played football. He went to University of Minnesota, didn't he?
Yep.
He could have played basketball for the Golden Gophers.
Yep. Which he did.
Yeah. But to me, did he play for the Twins?
Yes, he did.
Was it like the Jack Morris 1 year thing?
Yeah, I'm almost positive he got his 3,000 hit as a Twin. Him or Molitor did. One of the two got their 3,000 hit.
Oh, it's like Stan Ross, huh? From Mr. 3000. Okay.
Yep.
But yeah, if I'll give him a pass. Still, he went to the Yankees. He did play for the Padres and the Twins and wherever else he played for. But my number two
Padres,
is
Yankees, Angels, Blue Jays, Twins, Indians.
So it's the Angels I remember with the most.
Yeah.
But my number two is probably your number one, Dave Winfield.
Yeah. Yeah, he was huge. And he went into the same Hall of Fame as Puckett. Yeah. So, well, I will just keep sniping here at number two. You definitely hit it. Paul Molitor. What can we say about Molitor that hasn't been said? So you're number one. I'm kind of curious on number one here.
So basically, what have we gone? We've gone 4 for 4 at this point.
Yeah. If you went 5 for 5, I am shocked.
Well, here's the funny thing is, my number one played for the St. Louis Cardinals late in his career. Has a home in Gainesville, Florida, where his wife. I don't know if she's passed since I have been by the home.
Okay.
I did not take pictures of the home, but they bring it up in a little movie. We'll bring up the movie in a second, but they show the house in the movie, and it's. I had no clue until I looked it up and I went by his house and I found where his wife lived. I didn't take any pictures. I wanted to be respectful for the privacy of his wife and his kids. They actually they own some franchises in Gainesville. But my brother, I'm still going to shoot my brother to this day. Traded a full page of 1989. This one I'm going to shoot him for it. I still to this day want to shoot him for it. Traded a page full of 1989 Donruss Ken Griffey Jr. rookie cards for a 1964 St. Louis Cardinals. My number one is your.
You did have one on there.
I've been by Roger Maris's home in Gainesville. I have seen his family owns the bottling company in Gainesville. It's Maris Distribution. I've been by a lot of places that Roger Maris and his family has owned. The movie I was talking about was 61.
Yep.
They show the house in 61. I have been by that house. Yeah, I saw Roger Maris right away. Roger Maris to me was my number one.
Was that on the Baseball Almanac page?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Yeah, because we did another show and I was Googling. And I'm just like, really, Roger Maris is from.
I didn't know that either.
I didn't know that either. Yeah.
That's like Ted Williams. I had no clue Ted Williams and Joe DiMaggio were both from California because I had to go back through the list that about in New York to see if DiMaggio was on the list. And I'm like,
yeah, because a lot of older players came from that city they were born in when because it wasn't the draft and stuff like that. But yeah, when I saw Maris, I'm just like, okay, I'm gonna throw this one out there, and I thought maybe I'd get a curveball, but
I honestly thought you missed it. And I'm like, because I originally had Kent Herbeck, and then I said, "Oh,
I actually had Herbeck out there too."
And then Kent Herbeck, and then I saw Roger Maris, and everything just went down, and I'm like, "Holy smokes!"
So, but again, I think you said it best, and I will debate anybody with that. My number one is Dave Winfield on being the greatest all-around athlete that could have probably been a Hall of Famer in every sport. I mean, you had to pick one. Who knows if he would have been able to do two at the same time, what he would have done. But yeah, Dave Winfield by far, to me, you pick a better athlete. I mean, you got drafted in basketball twice. Yeah. You got drafted in football. You got drafted in baseball. I want to say, I was looking it up, and
I don't know if he got drafted in hockey.
But I think he played hockey, and I think
he did play. I think he played hockey too.
And that's something going back for, not to get racist or anything. Back in the day, that doesn't happen.
Well, it's almost like it doesn't happen now.
Yeah,
we're talking about black athletes that don't play hockey outside of Guy Lafleur. You don't get.
Yeah. So I was. Yeah, to me, Dave Winfield by far is the icon of sports. Yeah. So not wasn't my idol hero, as we all know, but man, that guy was definitely a mission. So now we did my state. I will give the honors, and we'll go to Wisconsin, which I think is going to be a tough one. There should be one guy on here that we should have. And that's what I'm going with. I am going with one.
I'm going with possible two because I know where my number two played.
Ooh, okay.
That's it. That's it.
Yeah. So all right. So I will kick it off here. I'm going number 4 or 5.
Number 4, yeah. Just forget number 5 altogether.
But I went with this guy just the fact I liked the name. That honestly, I couldn't tell you one lick where he played. I saw him on the list. I'm just like, you have to be popular for a baseball guy growing up in Wisconsin because of this name. And that's one Pink Howland. I just
couldn't tell you.
I saw that. I'm like, I got to put him on there. After I looked through the list a couple times, I'm like, I'm putting Pink on there at number 5.
I saw it. I'm like, God, I had legitimacy to my thing, and I'm going, I can't. And I'm looking at Wisconsin. I'm going, I can't even be legitimate at this point. It's so terrible. And I'm like, I don't know what to say. My number 5.
You're number 5.
I believe has a World Series with the Washington Nationals. This is kind of scary. And I believe he played briefly for his home state of Milwaukee. I think he played for the Brewers for a brief, small period. I can't remember because there was a couple Zimmermans that played for the Nationals, but I can never remember which is which and which one we had. So just out of for giggles, I put my number 5 is Jordan Zimmerman.
Okay. I did see the name on there, and yeah. So
I can't remember for the life of me if he played for the Brewers or not, because there was a Zimmerman that played for the Brewers.
Yeah. So just to go back on Dave Winfield quick, as I was looking up, he did not get drafted in hockey, but he got drafted by the Padres, the Hawks, the Utah Stars, and the Minnesota Vikings.
So Jordan. So just to go back on that one, Jordan Zimmerman did pitch for the Brewers.
Okay, all right.
And he threw the first no-hitter in Washington Nationals history.
There you go. So my number 4. I'm going to pull the homer card here outside of my whole state of Minnesota. the guy who, if you can get past the first inning, was lights out.
Oh,
and
so
there's a running joke, or I shouldn't even say a running joke. One of the local radio stations, it was the Twins were to kick off a game against Toronto, I think, and he was pitching, and they had a bet, and that he was going to give up the first home run in the first inning at this time, and he nailed the player, the time, and of course the home run.
Yep, my number 2.
Brad Racky at number 5.
That's the homer pick I was figuring you were going with.
Yeah, so my number 4 is Brad Racky. So your number 4.
My number 4. You know, I swear I brought up the Milwaukee Brewers a lot, or Milwaukee Braves a lot in this episode. A person, and I brought it up that I've met a couple Milwaukee Braves in my life. This is one of the other ones. He was doing a card show in Menominee, Michigan, at a mall, and you know, it was between him and Bob Hiller. My dad wanted to go down because, again, my dad's that Milwaukee Braves fan, and he says, if I get a chance to go meet him, I'm going to go meet him. And we did. Lucky enough to meet a center fielder of the Milwaukee Braves. My number 4 is Andy Pafko.
Okay.
Hall of Famer, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay. My number 3, you know, again, it's one of those things that, you know, just kind of shot out there. Hall of Famer, I believe. Like I said, Milwaukee was a tough one. You know, so my number 3 is Levy Cross.
Who?
Exactly. back in born in Milwaukee, May 12th, 1866.
May 12th, my brother and my mom's birthday.
Yeah, 1866.
Oh yeah, well before them.
Yeah. And then died September 6th, 1927.
Holy smoke! So, before any of my family members were born.
Yeah. So,
who did he play for? I'm not
look up. Let's see. He played for the Phillies. He played.
Which Phillies team? When they were in Oakland?
1893. I'm guessing.
Kansas City.
I don't know. St. Louis. No. And then went to. What team is this? The Browns. Brooklyn. It looks like.
Okay.
Yeah. Washington was his last team he played for back in the 1606. So
1606 before the Major League Baseball. Cool.
Or 1906. Sorry, yeah.
1606.
Yeah. All right. Your number 3.
My number 3, yeah, I pulled another homer card. In Wisconsin, you kind of have to because we don't have baseball players. We have football players and Latrell Sprewell. Other than that, we don't have much. We get the Watt boys and Latrell Sprewell and Nick Van Exel. I played with one of the guys that I had in the Minnesota in the Minnesota with Paul Molitor. Again, lucky enough to see him play. And the funny thing is in California, was it California? Yeah, California. There was another player that I saw that we missed too, because Dusty Baker was from California, and I saw him in that game too. My number 3 was the third baseman on that team, Jim Gantner.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to pull out another oldie but a goodie, the history here. Normally that's you, but this is me today. Another guy I just put on there just because I like the name. Berlin Grimes played.
Oh my God!
He was born in August 18th, 1893. So it was an oldie but a goodie, you know, as they always say. So, I'm just gonna look up this quick.
I just have this feeling. I have this feeling our number 1 is the same one, though.
Well, it has to be.
It's got to be.
But yeah. So he played for the Yankees, Pittsburgh, St. Louis, the Cubs, St. Louis, Atlanta, back to Pittsburgh and finished out with the Dodge. No, actually went to the Dodgers and finished out with Pittsburgh again. So, all right, you're number 2.
Well, I'm going to make you feel a million times better.
Oh, you hinted to it already.
I alluded to it, and this was I kind of alluded to it early. When I saw Brad Radke's name on the list, I went, yeah, this is – if it weren't for the other people I knew, and, yeah, I stole a bunch of Brewers and Braves, and I kind of went, yeah, no, it's the only other name that I kind of recognized and probably have seen him play. But, yeah, my number 2 is Brad Radke. Go ahead. Snipe me at number 1. I know it's coming.
Well, if you're a Brewers fan, you're a Major League fan, and the movies, as a matter of fact, he's also been a commentator or ring announcer for wrestling back in the day.
Yeah.
And I think he's in the Wrestling Hall of Fame too. I could be wrong on that. So, but yes, I'm going with the voice of the Brewers, Bob Uecker.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Yo.
Well, I mean,
yeah, it's Bob Uecker. It's like, and the funny thing is, back in the day, back in like the 80s, the early 80s, he was the voice of baseball for ABC. Yep. He was the guy that did the All-Star games. He's the guy that was the voice of Miller Lite. He was and now he's come back to be the voice. And as soon as Major League came about, he became the voice of baseball again. And it was just him and Vin Scully. People argue with me about Jack Buck and Ernie Harwell, but to me, it's always Vin Scully and Bob Uecker. Uecker's in 2 Hall of Fames, if you think about it. Bob Uecker's in the Hall of Fame in the WWE Hall of Fame. Bob Uecker's in the HBO Hall of Fame. No, the baseball Hall of Fame. He's in the
Broadcast Hall of Fame too, I think.
Yeah, he's also on. He's much like Paul Molitor. He's in the Brewers Ring of Honor. So, it's, and when I found that out that he was the Brewers voice, because I think I've said it more than once that we don't get the Brewer games up in our neck of the woods. We always got Detroit We always got the Detroit Tiger game. So we always heard Harwell. And most of the time it was almost difficult to get Packer games, and you always got but I was lucky enough to hear Bob Uecker's voice. We're still lucky enough to hear it, and it's just the voice is going to die. And the funny thing is, I think it was Matt Vasgersian, because I think Vasgersian ended up going to San Diego after he left Milwaukee, and the only reason why Vasgersian took the Milwaukee job was because Vasgersian did the TV voice. It was the TV guy, and they're right alongside the radio guy. And the only reason why he took the Brewers job was because he could learn from Bob Uecker.
Yep. Yeah, not a bad guy to learn from.
Yeah.
All right. So we normally end the show with a new list that we find online, but being that yesterday was a big day for the NFL fans, to me, it's the first day of the new season. I don't care what NFL says, because if you're going to have the tampering period, you need to just make it that it's the start of the NFL season.
Right.
So we are going to go with our top 5 surprise moves yesterday for the NFL.
Okay, I gotta.
And if you guys caught us last night, we had a late night morning tailgate show breaking down some of these moves.
Or extremely early if you live where I live.
Or extremely early morning tailgate. So while Tim's looking it up, I'm going to start with my number 5. And Tim, I hate to break your heart right away because I know you wanted him back. But Zach Moss signing to the Bengals, I thought with Mixon there, of course, now they released Mixon. I'm shocked the Bengals went this route. So, and we could talk a little bit about it, but yeah, I'm shocked the Bengals went this route. You're number 5.
The thing that shocked me I think not the most, but it kind of when the tampering period started, one of the first things that came up to me was that Tony Pollard had signed with the Tennessee Titans. I was like, really? And you just let Ezekiel Elliott walk, and then you're going to let basically his successor walk, and then that answers a lot more. It doesn't answer questions. Now it asks more questions. It's like, what's Dallas going to do at running back? Where's that leave Derrick Henry? At this point, Tennessee is just grasping at straws, I think. But yeah, that one kind of shocked me when it first came about.
Well, that was my number 4. We'll snipe it right there. Pollard going to the Titans. Crispy Bacon posted that he wasn't too shocked about it because they didn't franchise take him, so he thought something was brewing. But yeah, and some people, even Ace, he thinks that Titans went back, took a step back.
I think overall. They really did.
Yeah, because Henry, is number 2, I think, to McCaffrey as one of the backs that you want because he can catch the ball, he can run the ball, So you're number 4.
My number 4 was how much Indy spent on 4 players. They've spent close to $80 million, and almost actually technically, if I'm not mistaken, closer to $95 million on 4 pieces that I think they needed back anyway. With spending close to as much as they did on Zaire Franklin, Michael Pittman Jr., Grover Stewart, and Tyquan Lewis. I think you saw a lot where that defense went away when Grover Stewart got nailed with that PED. You've got basically your bulk, your center of your defense all coming back, which is good. I'm happy with what they did. We needed to lock those guys up because we can keep running the core that we did last year.
Okay. My number 3 shocking signing. He stays within the division. I thought maybe he would have ventured out a little bit if he didn't resign with his team. But Saquon Barkley going to the Eagles.
Yeah. I have to agree with you.
I thought for sure Eagles would have ran it back.
Yeah, that and you go ahead and give me that. Take the snipe on that one because you're absolutely right. I thought, especially the way we were talking, we figured he was going to look at, especially looking at the North. We thought we were talking maybe the Bears or the Vikings, but to see him go to Philadelphia. It's a nice breath of fresh air that he's not going to any place where it makes any difference to us. Yeah, that was strange.
Yeah.
Okay, because I know right now there's two that were huge to me as soon as I saw them.
Yeah. Number 2, speaking of those Eagles, I'm surprised they didn't re-sign this guy because he had a good year, helped them get to the playoffs, was a threat. I think he's a little bit more durable than Barkley, maybe not explosive. Some may differ. But the Bears signed a DeAndre Swift.
That's not the one I was talking about.
Okay.
No, I completely agree. I remember I remember breaking that in our group, and it went DeAndre Swift. And I thought we might have had to been on suicide watch with mess around because
he wanted Barkley, he wanted Jacobs, he wanted Henry, he wanted anybody. I think Swift's going to play good there. They can. I think who their quarterback's going to be. I think is going to be a big part of that.
I think that's going to be huge.
Your number 2.
My number 2 is Josh Jacobs going to the Green Bay Packers. That was a punch in the face. I don't think in a million years that I would have thought that Josh Jacobs with Aaron Jones being in the backfield, and then right after that, Aaron Jones being cut. Almost right after, as soon as they got the in principle, it was like they had told Aaron Jones. And the funny thing is, when you start looking at And it was weird, and it just to me it didn't make any sense because you kind of wanted a running back field like I wanted last year, and I wanted kind of that we had in Indy last year that Green Bay had last year with Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon. You kind of want that type of running back room, like I kind of hope that Indy would have had, but you bring in Josh Jacobs. I think I don't know what Grudenheist or whatever Grudenhorst is, the GM for Green Bay, was thinking, but maybe they didn't think they could have re-signed Jones after next season, because I think he's up after next season, and that just threw me for a complete loop.
Yeah, well, that is definitely my number one. My control's not working. There we are. Josh Jacobs going to the Packers. Yeah, and then the reports are coming out depending on who. Dillon's gone. No, wait, no, Jones is gone. No, Dillon's got cut. What they were going to do, and ultimately it was Jones that got cut because now he's going to don the purple and gold as we saw today. If you haven't got it, Aaron Jones is signing with the Vikings. But yeah, Josh Jacobs, a guy I would have liked to see in purple and gold. If he can stay healthy, he's going to be a beast. So Packers are going to look scary in the North. You're number one.
Well, you brought up the purple and gold, but we're going to talk about a guy who left the purple and gold. I know a lot of Viking fans were happy the day that the moment that it happened.
We're split.
Well, you're split, but most logical Vikings fans are happy that it happened. And I use the word logical. But to think how much, if you've seen the contract that it is, he got what, $50 million of sign, and we're talking about Kirk Cousins going to Atlanta. He got what, $50 million signing bonus. His first year is what? I can't remember that. I saw the contract. Number.
So here it is. So Cousins here the actual structure of his contract. 2024, $25 million cap hit. $40 million cap hit in 2025. 57.
No, go ahead. I'm doing a total in my head.
$57.5 million cap hit on 2026, 25 of that being dead money.
That's 122 and 3 years.
Yep. And then the same amount on 2026 with 12.5 being dead money.
And then he got, and like I said, then signed a $50 million on a.
Yeah, and I think 100 of that was guaranteed. So
100 guaranteed.
If he would have signed back here, that would have been my number one, because I don't think the Vikings should have done it, and I'm glad they did it. I know there's going to be many people that you never liked Cousins from the beginning. No, again, I reiterate, I just didn't like the guaranteed money.
Yeah, the guaranteed money is so scary.
And yes, I will say till I'm blue in the face and debate it all day long. The Vikings should have re-signed Case. They should have drafted Lamar Jackson. They should have brought Teddy Bridgewater back. Had an open competition. Yes, we know what Case did when he left the Vikings, and I could look foolish, but again,
I'm gonna tell you right now. I'm gonna tell you the Texans just traded for Joe Mixon.
Traded or signed him?
Traded him.
I thought he was free agent.
No, not yet, because the Texans just traded him before they actually signed the release papers.
Really?
You just put Joe Mixon, probably one of the best backs that Cincinnati's had in 30 years, and now you're putting him in with C.J. Stroud in that line. You think the AFC South was going through Jacksonville for going to go through the Jacksonville for the next 3 years? Right now, it's officially Houston has put their stamp on the AFC South.
Well, yeah, because I'm reporting here 13 hours ago, Bengals released Joe Mixon.
Yeah, it just came up on mine on that he has been traded to the. Let me see if I report Texans trade for Joe Mixon before the release for the Bengals. What's the whole deal? They don't say what it is, but
Okay,
It says the
that's something to
Cincinnati
watch out
Bengals
for.
I've got from on the app the score app on my phone. It's got Cincinnati Bengals are trading running back Joe Mixon to the Houston Texans rather than releasing him. Sources told NFL Network's Ian Rappaport. This comes from Andrew Dixon.
Oh, here it is. Yep, I got Ian Rappaport now. The Bengals are now trading Joe Mixon to the Titans rather than releasing
I bet you they get a third. I bet they get a third for that.
Well, and that's the thing too. They also got an upcoming guy in what's his name? I got his
They
card
got
here.
Damian Pierce to Houston.
Tank what the heck's the running back they got now?
They got Damian Pierce in Houston. They've got Damian Pierce.
They just drafted a rookie last year. They were
Who? Cincinnati?
No, the Texans.
Well,
Tate.
They had Pierce.
Yeah, but they have a. Oh God, I know it's gonna shoot me until I find out who it is.
They had Tony Harrison.
Maybe I'm thinking of a wrong running back.
Right now, what they've got in there is Andrew Beck, Troy Harrison, Dare Gunabale, Damian Pierce, and J.J. Taylor. You're thinking of the wide receiver, Tank Dell.
Oh, he's a wide receiver. I thought he was a running back. Yeah, every pitcher looks like he's a running back. All right, you're right. Tank Dell, yes. Also breaking.
Think of that backfield. You've got C.J. Stroud. You've got Damian Pierce, the line right next to Joe Mixon. You've got Tank Dell, Nico Collins. You've got that team is going to become a lot more dangerous. Yeah. Well, you guys what's name? You guys got the linebacker from them.
Yep. Also, I know we're not typically breaking news, but sounds like Jameis Winston is going to sign to be the backup in the Browns.
I'm just sitting here going, what are you going to say? And I'm like, I didn't see nothing. You're going to say Indianapolis just to watch me decide to pick a new team.
Yeah. So for you NFL fans, I mean, this is the season to start watching for. And again, be tuned to C2C because we will have our annual draft coverage with Crispy Bacon and our man Tim here, who definitely are going to be our 1-2 punch on the draft. And hopefully I can get off work and join them before the Vikings pick. Yeah. So with that being said, Tim, your final thoughts.
That's exciting. I like this. This is I like doing these state things. It kind of makes you learn a little bit more state-wise about what baseball players, sports players, different things. I think we've said it a lot. If you guys who watch tend to, you got that crazy look like you got news.
Well, I saw the last name quick, and it's the wrong Watt brother, but Derek Watt is retiring from the NFL after 7 seasons.
Jeez. Okay, well, another Wisconsin boy. If we ever do football, we know where we're going next. But we like this. It's fun. If you guys have any ideas, don't be afraid to drop them in our DMs and hit us up. Put them in the comments. Put them in the DMs. We listen to everything.
Yep. But yeah, definitely. Now the Bengals. Now ESPN is reporting it. Yeah, we definitely like doing these states. They're not as fun as the weird laws. I'll give them that, but it's still kind of fun to see who and what's going on in each state through the history. Definitely enjoy breaking semi good news or bad news, depending on what you're looking at it. When at least we don't got what was it, a couple weeks ago when a certain somebody messaged us and said so and so was retiring, and we're like, what?
Who was that? Was that me?
No, that was Crispy Bacon announcing that somebody was retiring, and we were all just thrown for a loop, and it was a different player with the same last name or something. I can't remember who it was.
Oh, I can't remember now. Now I know what you're talking about. I can't remember who it was. You're right.
Yeah, it's been a few weeks.
Oh, no, it was because I made the joke. It was
It was his brother. It was AC Slater's brother.
It was AC because I said he was AC Slater's brother. It was Jackie, not Jackie Slater, but it's brother of AC Slater.
It was funny. That was good. But with that being said, tonight, Between the Ropes, tomorrow, Sports Minute, Creeping It Real. Thursday is also Tim's wife's favorite show because of what happens at the end of the show, and that's Kicking It. If you guys want great comedy, you guys want a great movie review that's from Cloud9, go ahead and watch some of our old clips on Kicking It because we give a certain guy a classic movie to review, and he doesn't beyond left field.
Let's just say he doesn't disappoint. Let's just say if anybody's ever I'll give you a little taste of what it comes through. And what I saw, and I couldn't believe it. I'm not a fan of this movie, and I absolutely appreciated the absolute curveball that he threw on this movie. But the movie that he was asked to review was called The Godfather. Oh my gosh. And when he opened his mouth, he doesn't disappoint. If we charged admission, he'd be worth every second of it, every cent of it, because it's just so ridiculous. And he said it was the biography. We all know that right away is wrong. and me is crazy. He said
biography of Pat Riley.
Pat Riley, the great, and he's not wrong on the fact is that Pat Riley was the great head coach and the GM of the Heat and the Lakers, but I don't know. He's not even Italian. And
well, the thing is too, I mean, we've had to break down Dirty Dancing, which he
Bull Durham. Oh my
God. When he broke down Dirty Dancing, he maybe that's one of our lists. We'll just have to give our best Isaiah. I'll throw his name out there. Isaiah takes. He broke down Bull Durham as being a cowboy love story or something. Roadhouse being a movie about a mouse or something like that.
When he said
Grease was the thing is when we gave him Grease, he broke down Grease. And he gave the plot story of My Big Fat Greek Wedding.
Yeah. Well, that was like he did Bull Durham.
Yeah.
To me, I still think this is the greatest answer to completely wrong, but the greatest answer I've ever heard about a synopsis of Bull Durham, which he was again not even a million miles within the vicinity of. Because if you know Bull Durham's a baseball movie. We've talked about it. And he said it was a love story, which isn't wrong because of the Kevin Costner, Susan Sarandon character. Yep. But he said it took place in the West during the 1800s. And it was basically if you ever watched Urban Cowboy.
Yes.
He made Urban Cowboy back in the 1800s with mechanical bulls, which didn't exist in the 1800s. And basically that was Bull Durham. And I'm like...
So if you guys want a great comedy relief, watch the last 10, 15 minutes of Kicking It.
Watch the whole show. Watch the whole show because...
But the last 15 minutes will not disappoint. If I could get a sponsorship, like Tim said, and pay just for that moment, he will not disappoint in his breakdown. Speaking of that, Bro Code coming hopefully soon. The Grid Game with Callan has been on a hiatus. He's got some
he's a voice of
stuff to do. So
he's the voice of so many different sports and different things. That
he is. He's the best.
He's a tired cuss when he comes home. Yeah. So.
And the thing is speaking of voices, we got J-Mac getting ready for Oregon Cougars football, which is just right around the corner. So, not morning tailgate on deck is going to premiere this weekend. I don't know the exact times, but Big Game James and Chris are going to lead up that. Baseball season's right around there. So, with that being said, guys, I know we went a little bit over, but we had some great topics, some little breaking news. We'll see you all next week on C2C Rankem. Have a good one.